Greetings of the day, my fellow listeners, and welcome to another edition of Building Better Businesses.
Welcome, everybody, to Meet the Author with Steve Eschbach. Steve has written a book. It's called Link, Learn, Leverage, Why Networking is Your Greatest Asset. So welcome to the call, Steve.
Thank you so much, Abby, and thanks again for having me.
You're welcome. I'm really excited about this topic. We've had 14 published authors so far, and this one is very exciting. This call, 14 calls we've had. We've had more than that authors, but we've had 14 calls. You are our 14th, and I'm really excited about this topic because it is so relevant to everybody that is listening, and it's just so relevant in so many different ways. So I'm excited to hear your take on networking and to compare it to mine, and I have a feeling we're going to have a lot of the same opinions. So let's see. Why don't we start off with you telling us a little bit about your early career so we can get to know you better?
Absolutely. Absolutely, Abby. So my career started very, very early, as you can probably imagine for those that do know me. I actually started out as an entrepreneur. I had a lemonade stand in front of my front porch, and that's where my
wow.
Yeah. So that's where my entrepreneurial spirit began. And to this day, I continue to ride around the neighborhood. If I find someone who has a lemonade stand, I always stop and I always take a picture. And I ask the parents if they wouldn't mind if I would share the pictures of these young entrepreneurs because it's exactly what I did when I was their age. Now, I don't remember exactly how old I was, but it was very early. It's got to be grade school or before. And interestingly enough, I took that entrepreneurial spirit inside my house, and my father hired me to shine his shoes. Now, you got to stop and think about this. Yeah, he had me shine his shoes. He paid me a nickel a pair. Now, for those of you who can remember back to the 1960s, a nickel a pair of shoes, if I did 6 pair of shoes in a week, that was 30 cents a week. And my goodness, I could buy a lot in the candy store. And it absolutely could. So you fast forward the videotape, and for those of you that may not be familiar with that term, we're going to fast forward the CD or the DVD to later in my career. I actually was a photojournalist in the middle of my career, shortly after I graduated college. And that was an exciting opportunity because I was able to take pictures and write stories about what was going on in other people's lives. And that's where I got a keen sense of storytelling way back there, because just meeting people, taking pictures of them having fun or them participating in something, I thought that was a terrific job. It got me into kind of getting comfortable with meeting people, getting comfortable with writing stories about people, and getting input from them. That was a delight. So there were many more things that I did early in my career, but let's move on more recently, if that's okay. And my last corporate job was an investor relations officer, and that was a fantastic job because my job was to bring the C-level executives at publicly traded companies to interact with Wall Street. And basically my role was pretty succinct. I had to train them to be clear, concise, confident, and convincing about the investment merits of the companies that they ran. And, of course, the whole purpose was to convince Wall Street that ours was a stock to buy. So I was always coaching them to make sure that whenever they were presenting their story, they were doing it in the best possible manner. And so now we're up to where I am today, and I brought all that experience that I learned, my undergraduate degree in accounting and my graduate degree in investment finance, and I'm doing the same thing now, except I'm helping business owners confidentially sell their businesses to qualified buyers. Sort of the same thing, but it all kind of started with an entrepreneurial spirit back, I'm sorry to say it was more than 50 years ago, but all those lessons learned back then have helped me to where I am today.
It's amazing. It's amazing. I held a carnival in my driveway as a little entrepreneur. I don't remember how old I was. So it all starts from way back when, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So why don't you tell us what you're up to today and why you chose this particular career path?
So today I own a business called Transworld Business Advisors, and what I do is I help business owners confidentially sell their businesses. and I match them up with qualified buyers. So as you can well imagine, I must do a lot of interaction with a lot of people. You have the sellers looking to sell, probably wanting to move on to their next career objective, or it could be retiring. You never know. But I'm matching them up with qualified buyers, and those are the people to next step in and take their businesses to the next level. And why did I choose that career path? It's a funny story, because I was in transition in 2015, and now a good friend of mine, but the United Franchise Group rep by the name of Dan Nemianitis came up to me and asked me, Steve, would you like to own your own business? You ever thought about that? And I said, well, I currently own two, and I've owned two before that. And he was ready to convince me to buy a Signorama. But the one thing about Dan that I thought was very, very good is that he paid particular attention about where I was and where I wanted to go. And when he found out that my job was to work with C-level executives and help them tell the story of the companies they represented, and, you know, you're interacting with Wall Street, Transworld was one of the United Franchise Group names. It's a sister company of Signorama. He just listened, and he said, you know what, I think a better fit for you would be a Transworld Business Advisors franchise. And that's how I got to be where I am today. And it's just a matter of him listening to what I was telling him about what I did, what I thought I wanted to do going forward, and it just made a lot of sense. So, you know, that's clearly a good demonstration of listening and responding as opposed to just telling. It was up to him. He probably would have tried to sell me a Signorama, but he actually took the time to listen to my story about where I was, where I wanted to go,
good.
and this
That's
is a great fit.
That's great. So tell us what inspired you to write your book, and why did you choose this topic?
So I go back and I relive my past, and I realize that there are so many things that I've done that have made me successful, have taught me to learn from experiences, and it had to do with interacting with people. And in my mind, it was all about networking. And I think in today's day and age, no matter what you want to do, whether you want to do a business, whether you want to find your next career in the corporate level, or you're just looking for a reference so you can find someone who can seal your driveway or mow your lawn or paint your house, I think a lot of people refer on the opinions of others to get the best candidate in there. And networking has long been a part of my life. My first executive transition, was in 1999, and there were probably 6 or 7 of them beyond that. And I had found over the years that networking was the best way to get your next job. I would say that the last 5 to 10 jobs, that I've had many over my 40-year career, were all obtained via networking. And in my mind, it's not what you know, but who you know, and being the known candidate gets you that next opportunity, no matter what you want to do.
Yep. I love it. I love that answer, and I think the same thing. I mean, my last few jobs have been through networking. Same story, my contracts. Yeah, totally. And it's the only way to go. So it's good for business, and it's good for job search, definitely. And it's also good for information gathering. So, so I have really good stories about it. So I'll probably share one of them in addition to yours. So how about this? Why do you believe that networking has far-reaching benefits for all aspects of life? I kind of feel like you just told us, but maybe there's something you didn't just tell us.
Well, you know, I dial it back a little bit. I dial it back from job search, and I dial it back from business development. And what comes to mind is my car. My car had this unbelievable noisy clicking sound. And I had brought it to car mechanic, to car mechanic, to car mechanic, and I just couldn't find anyone to solve the problem. So I'm on the board of directors of my local homeowners association, and I just say out of the blue to my 3 or 4 other board members, I said, does anyone know a good mechanic? And one of the women on the board says, you know what? I knew this boy who became a mechanic. He now is a part business owner here locally. He's a great mechanic. I bring my car there all the time. So I brought my car in, and probably within 5 minutes he said, I know what the problem is, and boom, it was resolved. And what that did is it saved me time and money, and it just made a lot of sense just to ask someone. And you never know. I mean, I never thought anyone on the board of the homeowners association would know a good mechanic. They did, and my car situation was resolved. And that's what I mean about the far-reaching aspects of networking. I mean, you want to get your house painted, you ask someone who just had their painted, do they like it? Yes. Do they recommend them? Yes. I mean, you're looking to get referrals no matter what you do, because it just helps you out. It saves you time, money, and it gets that thing behind you, and you can move on to something else.
Yeah, I love it. And I've had so many experiences in my life where networking has come into play that has nothing to do with job search. It's life.
Absolutely.
It's about illnesses. It's about cars. I mean, it really helps in all areas of life. So I completely agree with you about that too. So how about, so in your book you were talking about beach balls and basketball. So what do these things have to do with networking or life?
Well, the reason why I chose those two examples, because I think they're best demonstrated by athletic ability. So the story about beach balls is I mentioned that you should no more than 3 beach balls. And the story I give is that if you and I were playing catch, Abby, and I threw you a beach ball, you would catch the first one. Then if I threw you the second one, I'm going to think you're athletically inclined and you'll catch the second. And do the same with the third one. I'll throw the third one. You'll hold the other 2 and still catch that third one. But what happens when I throw you the 4th beach ball?
I drop them all, probably.
You drop them all. And I learned that in my investor relations career, because if you deal with investment analysts on Wall Street, they have to follow probably 100 to 200 companies for purposes of selecting 40 that goes in a portfolio manager's investment portfolio. And one of the investment analysts told me, quite frankly, he said, Steve, if you can't boil your story down to 3 succinct bullets, I'm just going to move on to another company. So stop and think about this. If you're following 200 companies and you need to remember 3 important points, that's 600 points that you've got to remember. And if your company has 7 points, they're going to say, nope, you're not going to be part of my universe of companies that I want to select for the investment portfolio. So I do that not only in business, but I also do it in job search. I tell job search candidates, if you can't tell me your best story in 3 bullets, then you're not going to be effective. One of my fellow board members of the Career Networking Center, Connor Canine, he has always told me, and I firmly believe this, that you begin your 90-second elevator pitch with the 3 things you want someone to take away after they meet with you. And that way you can build on your story. And Abby, you've been to some of these FENG meetings where some people start the story back when they were born and when they went to high school and when they went to college. And unfortunately, that's a great story, but it does me no good to, A, figure out who it is you are and where you're going and what your target companies are. So you got to be short, sweet, and it's got to be in bullets. And that's where the 3 beach balls come in. But it's ironic, too, when you talk about 3-on-3s, there's another networking contact, and he's in the book. His name is Jim Wasak. He's a former CFO, and he's now a business consultant. And I asked him if he wouldn't mind having a one-on-one with me, and he said, no, Steve, I don't do one-on-ones. I do 3-on-3s. And I said, I haven't played basketball in about 20 or 30 years. He said, no. I don't mean that. He said, what I want to do is meet with you. I'm going to bring you 3 names that I think would benefit you, and I hope you do the same for me. Well, 2 years ago, I met with him. He gave me 3 names. All 3 names were business owners. All 3 of the business owners listed with Transworld. 1 of the 3 sold, and that beats the odds where 1 out of 5 sell. So he increased my odds of success because he gave me 3 names, and each of the 3 names became clients of mine. That's the power of 3-on-3s.
That's an amazing story. Oh, I love that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thanks.
That's a goodie. Oh, that's really good. All right, everyone, write that down. That's a really good thing. Okay. So you also have a mantra, and you say visibility is key. So tell us what you mean by that, and why don't you give us one example?
Well, the best example I can give you as to why I'm on this phone call today. And the reason why I say that is when I was in transition in 2006, it was Christmas season, right between Thanksgiving and New Year's. I had no job prospects on the horizon. So I picked up the phone and called a good friend and business colleague, Jeff Kotkin, who is the Investor Relations Officer at Northeast Utilities. I said, would you mind if I came down, visited with you? I'll go through my Rolodex. Remember when we had Rolodexes? Now, of course, it would be your Now it would be your cell phone. Let me go through the contacts I have in my database. Let's compare them with yours. Make sure I've got the right people with the right firm so I can follow up with them. And also, maybe he could give me 3 or 4 new names that I could use to call with his recommendation to follow up. And that was great. I had corrected 4 or 5 names and numbers, and I got 3 new names with endorsements from Jeff. How wonderful is that? Well, a week later, he gets a call from an executive recruiter saying, Jeff, how would you like to move from Hartford, Connecticut to Chicago? We got a brand new company being formed as a result of a merger, and you can head up the investor relations department. And he said, no. I'm pretty well set here in Hartford. I got a family. I don't want to move. But you know what? I just met with Steve Eschbach last week. He's got the utility experience that you want, and he is in the job market right now. Give him a call. I think you want to hire him. That was in December of 2006. In May of 2007, we moved to Illinois. I've been here since, and you know our paths crossed because I moved here, Abby. If I didn't move here, would we have ever had a conversation at all? I don't know. But that's what I mean by visibility. That's what I mean by visibility is key. I firmly believe that if I had not met with Jeff that day and he had gotten that call from the executive recruiter, he might not have thought of me. I was not top of mind at that particular moment. That's what I mean by being visible. And you got to do it multiple times.
Very powerful.
Yeah, you do. You have to remind people that this is what it is. If you're in transition, call them every 3 months. If you're in business development, call the same prospective clients just to remind them who it is you are and what it is you can do for them.
Definitely. Yep, I love it. Okay. And then you say that you have to be coachable. Now, I know what that means in my world. What does that mean in relation to networking? So
what I always try to do, being coachable means that when you interact with someone, you should ask for immediate feedback. And the best example that I can tell you is that I had a meeting with a prospective client where I brought in my colleague from Indiana, Mike Berry. He helped me with that meeting. And right after that meeting, after the clients left, we both asked each other, how did we do? How could we have done that better? And then immediately after we had gotten together, I called a prospective client, and I just said, how did the meeting go? Did we present ourselves well? Was there anything we left out? Because I think you need that feedback for you to improve on what you're doing going forward. And I know people in job search need to know that even though they think they might be presenting themselves in the best possible light, there might be some things that other people will catch that they can tell you about.
For sure.
So you know what, this is not as effective as it could be. But I am a firm believer that you always ask for critical feedback so that you can improve on what you're doing. Still to this day, when I present myself as a Transworld Business Advisor owner, and I ask people, so what is it that I do? They tell me I sell franchises. Well, that's 1/3 of what I do. And I don't blame them for not listening. I blame myself for not being clear, concise, confident, and convincing about the story I'm telling them. So there's something that I'm doing or I'm not doing so that the 3 components of what I do, help business owners sell, do mergers and acquisition, and sell franchises, those 3 things have got to ring clear with the people that I meet. And if it's not happening, then I got to go back and fix my messaging.
Got it. I love that. Okay.
How was that answer? Can you give me critical feedback on that?
I could, but then we wouldn't finish the rest of these questions. And
I get it.
So not only do I have questions for you, Steve, but I just want you to know we have a load of questions coming from the audience. So people are really interested in this topic. So that's really cool.
Good. I'd be happy.
So how about this? What are 3 of the biggest mistakes people make when trying to network? I could come up with 10 probably. So what are your 3?
I probably could come up with 15 or 20. But I think when you do anything, whether it be networking, whether you're putting a puzzle together, when you're filling out a crossword puzzle, you just can't show up and expect things to happen. You have to have a plan in mind. So if you're going to a cocktail reception, you got to be able to work the room. So you have to be able to meet with people, but then you also have to be able to say, you know what, this was a great conversation. I need to move on and talk to a few other people that I haven't said hello to. So you have to be able to to work. I mean, you had to be able to work the room. Not that you don't want to pay attention to everyone that's there, but you can't really cement yourself in a particular area of a networking event and expect that's going to be. The whole objective, in my mind, of any networking event is if you're with 30, if you're with 50, if you're with 75, pick 4 or 5 people that have a commonality with you and then schedule one-on-ones to get into a conversation that's a little bit deeper. There's a gentleman I know, an investment banker. He's well known because of all his networking contacts. He can work a room of 300 to 400 people. Ed Torillo, former investment banker, does a great job of working a room with 300 to 400 people. He will talk to you for 3 to 5 minutes. He will be warm, cordial, be your best friend, but then he'll say, you know what, I just saw someone over there. It was a pleasure speaking with you, but I've got to move on. And that's what you've got to do. You've got to be able to touch bases with as many people as you can, target those that you think you can help, and likewise they can help you as well. So believe it or not, networking does require strategic planning for that to be successful.
So now you call this, is this what you call networking on purpose?
Yep.
Or is that something else?
No, it's related to the previous question. It basically is networking on purpose. So when you attend an event, make sure you have an objective in mind. If you can get a list of the people that are going to be there beforehand, by all means, search out the people that you think would be best for you to reach out to. Right. Some people even go so far as to look them up on LinkedIn, and if they have a picture, they put a little picture on their phone, and that's how they're searching out these people. But you really need to be able, I mean, if you're going to a meeting with 100, 200 people, you're not going to become best friends for everyone. But it's okay to say, hi, how are you, what do you do, thanks, I got to move on. But you should find those people in there with commonalities where you both can assist each other going forward.
Another thing is I always tell people I wouldn't walk around and hand your business card to people. You should wait for them to ask for it. Do you agree with that?
Correct. I do agree with that.
Yeah.
And people think this is so counterintuitive, but Matt Budd, of course, the chairman of the FANG, always recommends that people, whenever they do networking, the first question they should ask, how can I help you? Or tell me a little bit about yourself and how I might be able to help you. Now, that your business card may not even come out. I mean, you may not even get that far. But the whole idea is to get to know these people, see if there's a commonality, see if there's a fit. Yeah, your networking event is not flashing business cards to everyone. There's a couple of business networking group events that I go to where the moderator will tell you in the beginning, I don't want to see business cards being handed out. I want you to listen to the elevator pitch. You can do that after the fact, but do not hand out business cards during the meeting. The whole idea is to listen and learn and leverage. Wow, that's clever, isn't it?
That's a really good title for a book. Wow.
I think so. But someone already wrote that book. I don't think we can do that again.
Yeah, someone did. Someone did.
Yeah.
You're right. All right. So how about some misconceptions about networking?
Well, clearly, networking is just not showing up. You really can't just make an appearance and have everyone just swarm around you. You have to put an effort into it. You basically have to go and put some time and effort into meeting with people. And you don't have to be outgoing or extroverted for it to work. I mean, just a couple simple questions. Hi, my name is so-and-so. Well, my name is Steve Eschbach, of course, but I'm a finance professional. I own a business, help business owners confidentially sell their businesses. What is it that you do, and how might I be able to help you? I mean, it's not very much that you have to do, and then just listen. Really, all you have to do is listen and then respond. And, you should obviously have your elevator pitch in mind, but listen to what they're saying and try to resonate with what they're telling you and see how you might be able to respond. That demonstrates, A, you're listening to them, B, that you have an interest in what they want or how you can help them, and just be yourself. Just really be yourself, and that will go a long way. It's amazing, but the first day I went to training at Transworld, they told me, welcome to the relationship management business, because relationships are key, more so than financial valuations of a business, more so than, how's your marketing going. You have to be able to have a comfort level with people, and then you can take it to the next step. And if you can't get that rapport with people, the business cards just don't make sense.
Yeah, I agree. So how about, I feel like we kind of have answered this one, but maybe you have something else to say. How can we make networking more effective for ourselves? Would you say we've taken care of that?
Yeah, I think we have. Yeah, that's a strategic
right.
objective you have in mind. Try to single out those that
All
you
right.
think you really want to go out of your way to meet.
Yeah, okay. So then, why do some professionals leave frustrated from a networking event while others leave with a gold mine of contacts? Now, I got to tell you, I'm an introvert. People don't believe that, but I actually am. And I know this is hard. This is hard for introverts. So I would say a lot of introverts might be frustrated. Can you help us with this a little bit?
Well, as I said before, you really have to go there and make an effort in interacting with people. So a good friend of mine once told me that networking only works if you work it. So it's not net sit, it's not net eat, it's not net drink, it is net work. So you have to put some effort into it. The example that I can give, and I think many people on this phone call have heard of a professional athlete by the name of Tiger Woods.
Of course.
I'm pretty sure I know that everyone knows him. But I'm not sure if everyone knows that if he's out there and shoots 2 over par, what's the first thing that he does after 18 holes of golf? He goes to the driving range or he goes to the putting green and he's hitting additional balls and he's putting additional putts. He is always practicing to make it perfect. And I think people cannot go to a networking event and not rehearse what they're going to do. You basically, the other story I give, and some of you who are Financial Executive Networking Group members, I tell this story all the time. I say, do you think Beyonce goes out there on Sunday morning of Super Bowl Sunday and that halftime performance appears? I don't think so. It takes a lot of effort, hard work, and you've got to practice this, and you've got to ask for critical feedback. If you think you're telling a message that isn't resonating, you need to hear that so you can refine your messaging. So what we mean by that is that you really have to put some effort. It takes work to become a good networker, even if you're an introvert, Abby. And by the way, you do a great job of being a closet introvert because I would never have guessed that, because clearly you represent yourself as an outgoing person. But maybe it's because you've been doing this for so long. Like practice makes perfect. So you do it time and time again, it starts to become natural. It really does.
Yeah.
But you were right when you said early on that some of your authors who come on board are nervous the first time. Well, do it 10, 50, 75 times, and it comes like it's second nature.
So let's go back to your book a little bit. So what was the book writing process like for you?
Oh my goodness, that was a rewarding experience. I will tell you that I learned a tremendous amount of the book writing process. But like many things in life, there is a structure and there is a roadmap that has got to be followed so that it becomes the product that you want it to be. You can't just go in and pick up your computer, pick up your laptop and start writing. It's got to be planned out. You have to start with an outline. And you would think that the first thing that you would do is pick a title. And believe it or not, that came last. And what even came after that was the cover design. And I was never aware that to get an effective cover like I did, you put it out to bid to a number of artists and you take a look at a number of samples. But it's a process that has got to flow in the right order for it to be effective. So, and again, it goes back to, critical feedback. And I know your team member, Christy, who worked with me on this, she was very polite but very firm, saying, Steve, I don't want to talk about this ancillary item. We've got to get back on track because we have a goal to meet at the end of this meeting. And it was always 50 minutes, and she brought me back on track. But the process has got to be followed in order for this to happen. It's just like buying and selling a business. There's a process to be followed. You got to put in a letter of intent. You got to put in an agreement. You got to follow the process for it to work effectively. With the book, and I never would have thought this. I would have thought you just wrote it, you printed it, you put it in a binder, and you sold it. Well, my Apple Watch is arguing with me, but anyway. but it goes back to the fact that you've got to depend on subject matter experts. I don't profess to know everything. I rely on a lot of people who know more about subject matters that I don't. And following the process that you guys have done, you've done 14 books, right? So I follow your recommendation.
More than that.
Okay.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. You've done more than one. I've written one book. I've got 7 more in
Yeah.
my head, but I've only written
I
one.
know.
And
Oh,
I
that's
understand there's a
wonderful.
process. Well, but there's a process to be followed, and you
Yeah.
have to do step
There is.
1, then step 2, then step
Yeah.
3, then
Yeah.
step 4. You can't do step 7 and go back to step 3 because then
Right.
things get convoluted and it just doesn't work.
Yeah. All right. Well, how has it, when you wrote this book or while you were writing it, how has it changed you or benefited you professionally or personally?
Well, I look at things so much differently than I have in the past, and I hope I'm a bit more compassionate. I try not to lose my temper as much, but I think I have a greater understanding of how people operate, how people behave, and I just look at people, and I think I'm more compassionate about who it is they are, and I accept them for who they are. It doesn't mean I necessarily agree with them, but I think I'm a little bit more respectful about many things in life. I respect business owners beyond belief because that's a monumental task to start up a business, let alone sell a business down the road. But and a buyer looking to become a buyer for the first time, or a job seeker looking to be successful in conquering that next opportunity, meeting with interviewers, who are the right people to target. It's just that I absorb a lot more, and I try to learn as much as I can from everything I see, because I think it makes me a better person. And to the extent that I learn more and can share with others, I feel a lot better as a human being by doing that. So I'm hoping I'm a little bit more receptive. I'm hoping I'm more of a learner. I'm hopeful that I can explain the lessons that I've learned. And if I don't know the answer to something, don't try to pretend that I do, but go recommend someone that might be a better fit, might be a better subject matter expert. I think I want to be more interactive and helpful to people. So I think I've kind of taken a step or two back regarding how I react to things. And I think that's made me a better person.
Has it helped your business, or it's kind of too soon because this book just came out like a couple of weeks ago? Has it helped you with your business at all yet?
It has. And keep in mind, too, that, the book was published, in October, and we're having a book launch today, but that writing concept took a while to do. So, the lessons I learned while putting those stories together and learning along the way has helped me with interacting with business folks, yes.
That's
so,
great.
I go
Wonderful.
in, and when I meet with business owners or I meet with potential business buyers, I ask them, why do you do this? What do you like about what you do? What are your pain points? What do you wish that you could do better? And, then I try to point that out to a coming in buyer. Well, they're having a little bit of an issue with marketing. They need help in marketing. Oh, I'm great at marketing.
Right.
So you try to find that fit, but you've got to ask questions and listen to their answers and be able to make that connection.
It.
Yeah.
So it's helped you be a better
does.
networker by writing the book.
Well, that's true, too. But, again, there's a lot of lessons to be learned from your life experiences. To share them in the book is one thing, and I hope people will read and find some similarities and say, I've been through that. Maybe I got to act that way the next time.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit more patient dealing with buyers and sellers and those in transition and those who are hiring.
Good. So we've got a bunch of questions for you, Steve, from the audience.
Sure.
Before we get to those, I just want to, I put up a slide for those of you that are watching the webcast. There's a slide to help you get in touch with Steve and to get the book if you would like the book. It's a really good book, so you should go get it. But anyway, Steve is the president of Transworld Business Advisors of Naperville, and there's a website, and it's on the screen. It's T-World, T as in Tom, World, tworld.com/Naperville. And Steve's email address is seschbach@tworld.com. And his phone number is 312-550-9965. And he's also on LinkedIn under Steve Eschbach. And if you want to get the book, you can go straight to the website. So the book is called Link, Learn, Leverage, and the website is called linklearnleverage.com. And if you put a /get the book, you can get the book. But if you just go to the website, it'll tell you how to get the book. So that's one way to get a copy of the book. And Steve is going to tell us about a neat way in Chicago to get the book. So tell us about the book launch party that's coming up in a couple of weeks.
Absolutely. Well, 2 weeks from today, January 30th, we're going to have a live version of a book launch. And I am delighted to tell you that Abby is going to be coming to Chicago, where we're going to do something similar to what we've done on the phone here on the webinar. We're going to do it live and in concert at my office in Naperville. And, whoa, there you go. It's right there. So there's the address as to where it's a social event for the Business Lounge Network that I'm a part of, which I use to facilitate my business interaction with other business owners. But, Abby, no, you haven't been there, but Matt Budd has been there, chairman of the FANG. We have a gathering area there. We have a place where I'm going to set up shop. And believe it or not, we're going to have musical entertainment there as well, plus food and drink. So it should be a good time for you to interact, get that. Yeah. So it's a great time for you to get your networking skills honed. So make sure you get that 60-second elevator pitch down pat, because you'll be meeting quite a few people there. But I am extremely delighted that Abby will be here to be a part of that. And she's been to town quite a few times. And believe it or not, for those of you, well, maybe some of you do know this, she's well received in many of the areas that she travels to, but most definitely here in Chicagoland. I know a lot of people know of Abby, and we had her present this past summer at a chamber event, and we had 30 or 40 people. Well, I forget what the topic was, but definitely got a great crowd, and I anticipate the same thing. But if you want to meet me, I'd be delighted to shake your hand. If you would like to get a copy of the book, I spent a great deal of time of personally inscribing it. So make sure I have something clever to mention about you when I do sign the book, because one of my hobbies, we didn't talk about this, Abby, but one of my hobbies is I have a collection of autographed books, and yours is one of them. I probably have about 30 or 40. Yeah, absolutely, and it's one of my hobbies. I want to get, Wow. So I like doing that, and I like meeting with authors, and I like, so I learn from them as well, just like I've learned from you, Abby. Thank you so much.
Sure. Well, and we've learned a lot from you tonight. I've definitely picked up some tips which I will use at the Business Lounge Network, given that I'm an introvert. So thank you for those tips. I'd like to throw some questions at you and see if we can answer some of these. Are you ready?
I'll do my best. Let's go.
And I have some comments for you, too. So I'm going to start first with a friend of yours, I think. This person said, "Hi, Abby. Terrific conversation with Steve. Kudos. Lots of key points have already been spoken about. Steve is excellent in caps. Key points with engaging examples. Awesome in caps." So that's from a friend of yours from
Thank you, friend.
Florida.
Thank you, friend in Florida.
Yeah, North Palm Beach County, Florida. You know who it is? I'm not going to say the person's name just in case she wants to be anonymous. Okay. And then here we go. Do you recommend attending one or two networking events regularly or spreading yourself out to several kinds of networking events? Ooh, that's a really good question. What do you think?
I think you should spread yourself out among various networking events, and this is something I profess, and my colleagues who co-facilitate the local transition groups here, I would encourage you, if you are in job search, to go to job search networking events, but I would also encourage you to go to trade shows. I would also encourage you to go to industry conferences, because what you want to be able to do is not only interact with those that have similar objectives that you have, which is a networking group, but you also want to interact with those that are parts of industry organizations that probably most of them, maybe a lot of them there, are currently employed and might be aware of job openings. And you need to do that as well. And you just need to mix and match the networking opportunities that you go. The last thing in the world that you want to do is just to single yourself out with one or two networking job search groups. And I don't want to sound disparaging at all, but while those are great support groups, you do need to mingle with others who might be able to provide you with opportunities, maybe that derivative networking opportunity. And what I mean by derivative networking opportunity, you may meet someone who may not know of a particular opening at their companies they're working for, but they know someone else at another company that knows of an opening there. I do the same thing with business development. When I go and I talk about what it is I do, someone will say, you know what, I just met with a client of mine who has been talking about selling. Maybe you should go meet with them. So you have to, in my mind, you should do frequent networking, that is for sure, but I wouldn't just stick to one or two. I would try to vary that over time because the mix of people is going to benefit you over time.
Awesome. I agree, and try professional networking groups as opposed to job search networking groups. So I would do job search networking groups if you're looking for a job, but also the professional industry groups. Those are good things.
Can I add one more comment, Abby?
Of course. Go ahead.
Yeah. So when you go to these networking groups or when you go to these business development groups, I don't know if this audience, maybe most of them do know of an accountability group, and that's where you would pick 4 or 5 members who will hold you accountable to your weekly goals. And this has worked very well in Chicagoland. There was one gentleman that held a networking group where he advertised, and this was true, that typically people find jobs in 6 to 7 weeks because they met every week and they held them to the 6 or 7 goals that they were going to do each week. And when they came back the following week, if they didn't do any of them, you're not going to succeed. And believe it or not, some of these accountability groups will kick you out if you don't be accountable to what you say you're going to do. That is, and that's also a firm belief of mine with business development, because you need to be accountable on getting new clients, getting in front of prospects. You need to have these metrics with which you go after that will make you more successful.
Okay, I love it. I think these are good. There are a bunch of people asking whether we were recording this session, and yes, we are recording it, and you will all get a copy of it after it's over, right, Steve? That's what we're going to do. We're going to send it out to everybody, I think?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So everybody will get it automatically.
I keep on saying absolutely.
I know, and that's really good. So keep saying it. Just keep saying
Will do.
it. It's very good. Let's see. What else do we have? Someone asked, what is the one thing that individuals seeking a job do not understand about networking? I feel like we kind of answered that, but do you have anything else to say there?
I will. Well, it's about networking. Here's the best story I can tell. And I don't know if it has to do with networking, but it goes back to my mantra that you have to listen and respond and not tell. So I remember when I had an interview many years ago, and it was for a job based in New York, but the headquarters was in Sydney, Australia. So one of my perks would have been to fly to Sydney, Australia twice a year. And I remember I was in the interview, and the person interviewing me said, Steve, can you do A, B, and C? And I said, yes, I can do A, here's an example. Yes, I could do B, here's an example. Yes, I could do C, here's an example. Then there was a slight pause. And then as the woman was about to ask the next question, I said, oh, by the way, I can do D, E, and F. And this happened throughout the interview. 2 weeks later, I got a call from the executive recruiter and said, Steve, I'm sorry to say that you're not moving on for further consideration. I said, oh, my goodness, would you mind sharing some feedback with me? And believe it or not, this recruiter did. I know more often than not you don't get that response from a recruiter. They'll just say there was a better candidate. Right. She actually told me, and she said, Steve, they rejected you because they thought you were disruptive. And I said, oh, my God, what do you mean I was disruptive? They said every time the interviewer was going to ask you a question, you interrupted because you had to tell them about 3 points that they could care less about, and they thought that you were going to bring that behavior into the job and you would be disruptive in regular meetings. So I don't know if that kind of relates to networking, but I guess it kind of does. So when you're in a networking event, you just listen and respond. And, you know, if you've got 16 things that you want to tell them and they only care about 2, well, when you're in a networking environment, only talk about the 2 or 3 things that they're interested in. Yeah, you might have 17 other skill sets that you're proud of, but they're only worrying about, or they only care about 1 or 2. So keep the conversation focused on what the interest is, and don't try to tell too much, because sometimes that too much can come back to haunt you. Is that kind of online of what you're looking for?
Yeah, I think that probably. And if this person would like to ask a different question, if it wasn't the right answer or wasn't the full answer, throw another question in here. We've got a couple of minutes. Let's see. What else did we have here? Let me see what else we had. How about, what's your advice about shaking hands?
Well, I would recommend that anyone, when they do that, make sure the handshake is firm, and make sure that when you do that, you're looking the person in the eye with a smile on your face. Because the last thing in the world that you want to do is have a limp handshake with a frown on your face looking away. How important does that make you feel if someone is doing that? You really have to show a great interest in the person that you're meeting or the person you're saying goodbye to. Make sure, and it goes back to my mantra that you need to be clear, concise, confident, and convincing. Well, you can do that in words, but you can do that in handshakes as well. So make sure the grip is firm. Make sure your posture is perfect. Make sure you're looking the person in the eye with a smile, and I think that'll go a long way in terms of making the introductions and making the departures go a lot smoother than they would otherwise.
Terrific. I love that answer. So do you want to leave our friends with any tips before we let you go?
Well, I would always encourage you, I guess the two things that I'd leave you, we talked about visibility is key, so you need to get out there. I know the Internet is a panacea for a wealth of information, but there's nothing better than face-to-face contact and having the interaction with live people. That's a much better experience. And again, I know that the Internet's got a lot of research in there, but you really need to physically get out and meet people. And the other thing is you never know. And what I mean by you never know, you just ask a question, see what the response is, and you never know.
Yeah.
So I go about that car
That's
story.
a good tip. I love that you never know tip. That's so good.
But you should never hesitate to ask a question. What's the worst that could happen? Abby, do you know where I can get the best bagel in Chicago? Do you know the answer to that question?
Yes, you can go. Yes, I know. The answer is go to New York.
Absolutely.
Actually, Brooklyn.
Now,
go to Brooklyn.
Well, I know the answer. But you know, if you don't know, you can say, well, I appreciate you asking. I can't help you out. But now I know if I want to get a good bagel, I'm going to call Abby, even when I'm in Chicago. I'm going to New York next week. I'm going to go to New Jersey to get my bagels.
Good. Well, we have good ones. Actually, not New Jersey. It's New York.
Yeah, and I love the pizza in New York, too, so that's what I'm going to get when I go to New York as well.
You get a
I'm
bagel
not a deep dish
and
fan.
a pizza and, right. Yeah.
And then I'm
really
going to Baltimore
to New York
visit.
Next week?
I am, yeah.
You really coming to New York?
I'm really coming to New York next week.
All right, we should talk. Clearly,
oh my goodness.
after this call.
Hey, you never know. Aren't I glad I mentioned that?
Yeah, exactly. Now, I just want to mention, if you asked a question and we didn't get to it, there's kind of maybe one or two of those, or if you sent a comment, Steve's going to get a list of all these questions, and if he sees something that we didn't answer, he'll just write back to you personally. And those of you that wanted to know if we were recording it, yes, we did, so you'll get the recording. And I hope that I see all of you at the event in Chicago in a couple of weeks for the yummy food and the yummy drinks and the great music. And so you can all get a copy of this wonderful book and learn how to be networking experts like Steve. So Steve, thank you so much for spending the time with us. We all learned a lot from you, and we look forward to seeing you again and hearing from you again.
Yeah. Thanks again. I appreciate the opportunity. It was a delight to not only write the book but participate in this event. And like you, I look forward to meeting people in Chicago in 2 weeks.
Thank you. Good night, everybody. Have a great evening. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.